Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Art School Live. Eric is out this week. He is hosting Art School Live, not Art School Live, he's hosting Acrylic Live, our virtual conference for acrylic painters. So he's going to be out all this week. So I get to be your co-host, which is super fun. I love getting to do these. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently today. I want to chat with our guest that we have today about a little project that we're working on, and I want to share it with you guys. And then at the end, she's going to do a short little demo. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗹. I've been with Streamline Publishing for 13 years. I'm currently the project marketing manager and the Plein Air Salon art competition manager. And Eric always likes to say that when you work for Streamline, you either become an artist or an art collector. And in my case, it's both. I have always loved art all my life, so much so that even in the 4th grade, I wanted to be an artist. Look at that, 10 years old, and I even had the little beret and palette. So I've always wanted to do this, always wanted to work with art. And after joining Streamline, I have been exposed to so many new artists and mediums and genres and styles of art. But being a tactile person and loving to work with my hands, pastels just is what I naturally gravitated to. And as you can tell by the wall and the glasses, I clearly love bold, bright color. And you cannot get more bold and bright and vibrant than pure pigment. So with my love of pastels combined with working for an art company, I have been able to combine my passion with my work, which is such a blessing. We have a weekly newsletter called Pastel Today that's edited by Kelly Kane, and I get to help out a little bit by contributing with community news, which essentially is just I wanted to spread the word about things going on in the pastel community, things like a society show or an artist that's won an award recently, or sales on pastels, because we all love sales on pastels, right? So in addition to all of that, I also had the privilege of co-hosting our Pastel Live virtual conference last year, which was such an amazing experience, and I hope I get to do it again. Hint, hint, Eric. And through working here, I've also been introduced to so many fantastic artists, including today's guest, Lisa Skelly. I first learned about Lisa through the Plein Air Salon art competition. She had entered that quite a few times, and we'd emailed back and forth quite a few times. And we actually got to meet in person for the first time. I think it was 2023. It was the Plein Air convention in Denver, and she had won Best Pastel in the 12th annual competition. So I got to present her with that award. And then we got to know each other a little better when she judged one of the monthly competitions for the Plein Air Salon. And one of the things I love about Lisa is that she's so friendly. Once you meet her and you start talking with her, she is so easy to talk to. And it's like you've known her forever. So with that, I want to bring in Lisa Skelly. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, Carrie. Well, that was lovely. And I feel the same way about meeting you. And so, welcome everyone. And like Carrie said, thank you for joining us. And thank you for having me on the Art School Live podcast today. I'm very honored and I get to share a lot of great things with you and what Carrie and I have been working on. And that's our project. So, a little bit about me because some of you may or may not know me, and I am a pastelist first and love pastel. I've been working in pastel for 20 years, and I have always wanted to be an artist too. It's really, really great to see that picture of you when you were 10, drawing yourself in the future, and then look at you now. So, and the same thing when I was in kindergarten, always thought of myself as an artist. And when I started plein air painting, my first workshop was with Ken Oster, and we worked in oil, and I was terrible. So, don't let that discourage you because I was hooked as soon as I took the class. I mean, took the workshop more than 20 years ago. And I was like, I have to do more of this plein air painting and go outside and paint. But then I found pastel. And so pastel was just a natural, uh, I just took to it like a fish to water. I could draw and paint at the same time. In fact, there's a little, no, let's say a competition, not a competition going on, but just like a rule of, is it a drawing or is it a painting? And so I always think of it as a painting, but we're just painting with pure pigment. And so dry pigment, which is great because it's dry. And so you don't have to wait for it to dry. And you can layer it and it's vibrant and you got all these texture in there, and I think it's my favorite medium to work with, and you can also pair it with other mediums too. So, but we're going to talk a lot of I mean, there's so much to talk about when we dive into pastels. I took over the 𝗬𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗵 art gallery in 7 years ago, and have been running and curating and collecting and all sorts of things for the last 7 years of this wonderful relationship that when I met 𝗬𝗶𝘁𝗄s, we were like kindred spirits. And so I was very honored to be the steward of the legacy that she had built for 20 years. And the gallery now, a plein air gallery on Balboa Island in Newport Beach, California, is going on its 27th year. And so we also host a plein air invitational that is going to be the 20th year this year. And that's very exciting, and very much people plan their travel around coming to this event and seeing the artists painting all around the island. It's kind of like going back in time. It's a very nostalgic, charming place to be. Great place to do paintings because you've got the harbor, you've got iconic landmarks on the island that people just love, people bustling around on Marine Avenue. And then you've got little gardens and cottages, and you've got a big beach break right off of Balboa Island on the ocean side, on the peninsula side, and it's called the Wedge. And I love to go out there and paint. Oh, look, there's one of my paintings right there, and that's of the Wedge, and it's huge. That's about a 20-30 foot break that day, and that's one of the places that I love to paint. So I am also a pastel teacher. I love to share everything about pastel and share with other artists. We get a lot of artists that come into the gallery, and I love to help them, along in their journey just by sharing. We have an artist language. When we talk to each other, it is a very unique language. And when we have a friend in the art world that we can talk to, the way we speak about art and the way we're passionate about it, it really comes through, and it's really fun to share that language with other fans of just plein air painting artists, pastel painters, oil painters in general. And so I'm happy to share all that with everybody that comes in the gallery. So, and the studio, and we do workshops and all of that stuff. So, oh, there's so much to cover. I just can't even cover it all in a few minutes. So I'm happy to be here. And thank you, Carrie, for having me on today. I
Yeah, definitely. That
appreciate
is a
it.
lot. You guys definitely have a lot going on.
Yeah.
So Lisa and I are, we're obviously very passionate about pastel, specifically soft pastel, which is why we are launching the Pastel podcast. We were both in a Zoom call one day, and I get a text message that says, "Hey, nice to see you today. Do you have time for a call?" So Lisa calls me and she says, "I have this idea for a pastel podcast, and would you want to co-host with me?" And I was blown away because of all of the people in the world that she could have asked. She asked me, and I was just shocked. So I, of course, jumped at the chance and said yes. And some days it doesn't seem real that we're on this journey. Lisa, would you tell us, kind of walk us through your thought process on why you wanted to start a podcast and why you wanted me to co-host it with you?
Sure. So I love listening to podcasts, and you get so much information, whether it's, I love wellness podcasts and environmental podcasts, but I love art podcasts. Get to listen to Eric, always has exciting guests to get new information every day. And so I thought, oh, that would be so fun to host a podcast years ago. I thought, oh, this would be really cool to share the love of this vibrant, amazing medium, and the arts and the people that are working in pastel. And so, yes, Carrie and I were on this Zoom call together, and something about Carrie's presence on the camera, and I had seen her hosting Art School Live and the Pastel Live, which I was fortunate enough to be invited to that, and Plein Air Live. And so she always had this wonderful presence on the camera. And I was like, I think she'd be great. I wonder if she'd be interested in doing this with me and or talking about it, because it's definitely a journey when you have an idea and envisioning your idea and wondering how is this all going to happen, if is it going to come to fruition. And so I did call her and said, Carrie, what do you think about doing a pastel podcast? And I think you'd be great. And so she said, well, let me talk to Eric about that. No, we didn't want any conflict. And I was like, oh, wait, this is good too, because they already have this huge following. And if I had tried to do this on my own, it would take years to build up a following and get people interested in what I was talking about. It could be forever, which when you're doing what you love, it doesn't really matter. But this is going to jumpstart all us into into finding those people that want to know more about what we're going to be sharing on our podcast. So, Carrie, I am honored to be doing this and have this adventure with you, and really looking forward to it.
I'm
So,
super excited. It's going to be so much fun chatting with all these pastel artists and
mhm,
just, talking about life, talking about pastels, everything. So if you guys
mhm.
are interested in listening, you can sign up at thepastelpodcast.com. We're going to be launching our first episode in May, and it's going to be so much fun. So be sure to check that out. And thank you guys all so much for kind of listening to our little passion project. We were so excited
Mhm.
to share it today. And with that, we can now shift over to Lisa's demonstration.
Oh, well, thank you very much. So I was thinking about everything that we are going to be embarking on. And, when there's so much information shared on Art School Live, and it's always so interesting to say, okay, what have we not covered yet? And what do people want to know? What do people want to see and hear about? And Pastel is so unique, but what I think is really important is the concepts that we talk about, no matter what medium that we are working in, they overlap with other mediums. And in fact, when I take a workshop with an instructor that I just love what they're doing, I will always work in pastel, but what they're teaching, I can apply in my own medium or my favorite medium. Or if you want to explore new mediums, you have the opportunity to try and even experiment like with water-based mediums. You can even have an underpainting of gouache or watercolor and layer pastel on top. And oil, not so easy, but when I go to, like I said, an oil painting workshop, I work in pastel. And so, but I'm not afraid to try oil either. But I find that I just keep gravitating back toward pastel. But all of our mediums and all of the different subjects, mediums that we work in overlap and inform each other. And
Mhm.
so I want to share with you guys a couple different ways to start a pastel painting. So as I grow and as I learn more and more about the medium and what other artists are doing in the medium, they inspire me to try new ways of starting or developing my paintings in pastel. And a few that I have learned, one from 𝗬𝗫𝗫𝗍, and I know there's a lot of artists. She was my first pastel artist that I fell in love with her work and her as a person. She's fabulous. I get to represent her work in the gallery. It's such an honor. She is one of the best pastelists working in the medium in the country, and is award winning. She's fabulous. Um, 𝗬𝗶𝘁𝗄, who started the gallery 27 years ago, or founded the gallery. She started out in pastel. And so, in fact, we did a practice podcast with Deborah, talking about, her beginnings as a plein air painter, as an artist, although she started when she was a young kid too, like she went to art school. But anyway, she loved pastel. She's actually a signature member of the Pastel Society of America. And she doesn't work in pastel very often, but her pastel beginnings have really informed her work and what she's doing now as an oil painter. And in fact, we have a workshop with her coming up in less than a month on the island, and her paintings are happy, joyful, and the way that she approaches her um, process is very much informed by how she started out in pastels. And another at the plein air convention last year, I went to, I love going to see who's demoing on the pastel stage, of course. And 𝗂𝗏 was on the pastel stage, and she's using this as a blending tool. This is pipe insulation. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. But something about it and the texture, you can rip pieces of it off of this little thing. And I'm sure this is just the beginning of thinking of new ways to blend
Mhm.
or to like I know one of the artists I represent, 𝗦𝗸𝗁𝗏, he uses like things that he finds on the ground to make the marks that he wants to make in his oil paintings. So he used a cactus, like with the pokey cactus
Yeah.
things to scratch into his painting when he was out on location. I was like, that's brilliant. Like there's so many ways to get to accomplish a successful painting. Like, be brave and experiment. So this little pipe insulation, I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to try that because look at how beautiful 𝗂𝗏 paintings are. And she achieves these different, wonderful layers in her paintings. And so this is one of the ways I'm going to show you how to start your painting today. And thank you, 𝗂𝗏, for sharing your techniques so that I could experiment. And then the other is an alcohol wash. So 𝗬𝗏 starts with an alcohol wash, and the thing that I really love about the alcohol wash is that it leaves all these drips and all these abstract patterns underneath, but it covers up your surface. So the same with this, it's just different. So there's lots of different ways to start your pastel paintings, and they're going to give you a different look at the end, but it's all good. It's all fun. It's all wonderful. So I started. I was coming back from Sonoma County yesterday. We were up there for this really cool event, and I was on the airplane. And Sonoma County is absolutely beautiful. And I saw this out the window of the
Oh, that
plane.
is pretty.
Isn't that pretty? And I was like, oh, I love the simple shapes. I love the hills and the backgrounds and the
Yeah.
trees. And then spring is coming. So all the mustard is starting to bloom. And so this is some of the mustard flowers in the foreground of this green meadow. I know it looks a lot really green, but the print doesn't do it justice. But I thought I would share two different ways to start something like this. And because it's simple.
Yeah.
And so what I love to paint is big waves. There it is, big waves over there. And that one, I use an alcohol wash underneath. In fact, on my Instagram, you can see a quick kind of like the pattern at the beginning, the transparent pattern that I do, and then the alcohol wash and all the drips and how fun it looks, and just like, and it leaves all these cool marks in the underneath in your underpainting that you can use later in the painting, whether it be drips that turn into branches or tree trunks in the distance, or beautiful like things in the water, in the layers and things like this. So this one here, over here, this one won an award at the Solvang Western Art Show, won Best in Show. And it has so many fun drips in the rocks and on the underpainting, and the judge really fell in love with all of that, those patterns underneath that you could see through in the
Mhm.
layers. So anyway, this is what I'm working on today. So I'm going to move my camera over so you can see, and I'm going to pull it closer so that you can see. I've got two different boards here. Let me see, Carrie, let me know when you can see that pretty
Yep, I
good.
can see both of them.
Okay, so I did just kind of a rough lay-in, and we have this is our reference photo. And then one of these I'm going to work on doing the alcohol wash, and then one we're going to blend with this blending tool. And you're going to be able to see the different ways to start. And I'm really excited to see what other people come up with and how you translate this to your own work. So I'd love to hear what people are doing out there and how they are experimenting with different ways of starting a painting or mark making, because it's all good. So what I like to start with and what I've developed over the years, because I've been working in pastel for more than 20 years, is a transparent layer underneath. No matter what, no matter how I start my painting, I'm going to start with a transparent layer. And I'm going to see when I put this on, yeah, I want a little bit lighter sky. So it was kind of getting to be a little bit overcast. And
Is this a
so
sanded board?
this is a sanded board. Yeah, this is a 𝗬𝗏 400 grit. It's one of the ones I really love to use the most. And I don't mind when I'm first starting this part, it's really fun to put some other colors in there, like a little bit of pink, you know, and that's remembering where my light source is really, really important. So, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here, because we're going to see what the difference is in these techniques. And I want to share what that looks like. So we're going to try to keep our cooler colors in the distance as I develop this. We've got this really beautiful hill back here that is, let me see. Might want to do it a little bit. I want it darker than my sky, of course, but I want it lighter than my trees. So there's this really cool hill, and I can shape, see how cool that is? I can shape the edges. Now we're going to do a wash over it, so it's going to change. You know, we're going to blend, you know, our patterns and our shapes. And then I'm going to do, I'll do it, you know, similar over here, but I want to get this hill, you know, maybe I change directions. You know, we get to design our paintings and be the conductor of our orchestra on our surface, because we are composing a painting and we get to make it better than it looks in real life. We're inspired by what we see out on location and out in the real world, but it is us, the artist, that gets to create something even more beautiful and show people what inspired us to that location in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I'm going to put, this is like one shape back here. I'm going to do the tree line. I want to break the tree line. I don't want I break the hills in the distance with a tree coming up over the top. And I don't want my trees to stop at the ridge. I can also do it on this side. Like I could break the ridge, the hills back there, you know, with another tree over here. And I kind of want to guide your eye down and around. Like, so I'm thinking about all of these things while I am setting up, you know, the beginning of my painting. So my ground is going to be more warm and greener, you know, just like I'm going to use a middle value to kind of express that. And I'm going to do real transparent layers. So I'm going to get that middle value of what I'm looking at, the shape that I'm looking at, in order to represent what I'm seeing. And I'm going to put a few other colors in there, because I got, you know, we have some real greens, even though that's a warm green under there. This one is going to have a lot of yellow in it. So I want to design the shape of where all the mustard is in the front. I want it to be a pleasing, you know, kind of maybe like an S, you know, going back, or just like a little bit of a diagonal. And then I'm going to get some yellow in there. I want some beautiful yellow warmth in there. It's hard to get down to the bottom of my page down here, or my support. And then maybe that was a little bit warm. I want to put some orange in there too. So look at how fun that is. And we can tone that all down, but it's really fun when we have the underpainting is our way that we can, or the beginning part is where we get to break this ridge line here. We get to have all this vibrancy underneath. And one of my favorite artists used to say, you can tame a stallion, but you can't bring a dead horse back to life. So start vibrantly. And that was 𝗬𝗶𝘁𝗶𝗹𝘆. She was my first mentor. Loved her. And sorry that she's not with us anymore, but her legacy and her teaching and her beautiful paintings live on. So she's still here with us. So I could go up even off of the painting with this one off the top. I want to see, that I could do later too. But I want to get this cooler green in the distance for the trees. And then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to try a different color than I did on the other side, just because why not? So like, let me get some green in here. And I don't want to fill up the tooth of my support. So I am taking it really lightly. I'm really barely touching the surface, just getting a transparent layer on there. And then I'm going to go back in with some yellow. I could even do a field of poppies or something, like oranges
Mhm.
or fuchsia for some beautiful pink flowers, because those are gorgeous. I love fuchsia and green together. So I could put a little bit of that in there. Let's see what that would look like. Might not be bright enough, but we'll see. Or vibrant enough, actually. But I'll put a little patch of that in there. Okay, so we've got two similar scenes. Sonoma County in the spring, it's so pretty. And then we've got two different ways that we are going to do our underpainting. And so I'm going to start with my alcohol wash. And so what I want you to know about an alcohol wash, if you've done this before, you know how fun this is. This is the first time or only time I really get to use a brush when I am pastel painting. And so what I want to do is keep my alcohol as clean as possible while I'm working. So I'm going to start with my lightest areas, and then I'm not going to worry about the drips. I'm not going to worry about what kind of things go down into the bottom layers. I'm going to start at the top in my sky because that's one of my lightest areas. And the cool thing is that I can move this pigment around and get different like lighter areas into my sky and different shapes that may turn into clouds later. That'll
Mhm.
be kind of fun. And so this is so much fun. And when you really are allowing yourself to explore and experiment when you're painting, you are going to enjoy it more, which I love. So, because I like to find the joy in the painting and in the process. And
Right.
so I'm like, all right, let's play. Let's play, you guys. Let's play with our pigments and play with our process and really enjoy it and see what we can create. And then remember what happened that was good.
Is that a filbert that you're using?
This is a filbert, but you know what? If I'm doing this on a sanded surface, eventually a flat is going to turn into a filbert.
Yeah.
So, so I'm going to get my hill back here. I get this dusty blue hill, and I can reshape it if I didn't like the original shape of that. I might make it more interesting, put up it, or I can come back into it with the sky later. And then I get this. Oh, I like that little ridge right there. There's a beautiful mountain up there called St. Helena Mountain, not the one that's up in Washington or Oregon. I can't remember where the famous one is, but there's a St. Helena Mountain. There's a St. Helena little town, little wine country town on your way to Napa from Sonoma County. And there's a beautiful mountain up there in Healdsburg. It's iconic in the distance. You can see it from a lot of different places. And so I want to get that. And that doesn't look like it, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So let me get this in here. Might as well. Oh, oops, I went over to the wrong side. Oh, well, we're not gonna worry about that. Oops, I went over there before I meant to, because I'm doing that one with the dry blending tool. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into my trees. So my light in here is going to be, I'm going to have it coming from the upper left. And so I can lighten up that side of the tree. I did not mean to go over there and do that, but that's okay because I'll be able to blend that with my blending tool. So that's the dry side that has a little bit of wet in it. So like, can you remember what I'm doing over here? And then I'm going to keep, see, look at how fun this is. These little drips in there.
Hmm.
Those are going to turn into branches or into tree trunks. And I can pull pigment back up into here or down. If there was a water feature here, you can use that as reflection coming down into your water. A lake or something like that would be a really beautiful way to carry that reflection down into the water. And it's kind of there subliminally, like, and then you can say the things that happen when you're doing an alcohol wash, the patterns and things like that, they can kind of sometimes guide you into the direction that you want to go in your painting.
Hmm.
And so because there are these fun surprises that happen in here. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go with that because whatever happened naturally because of what I was doing made it even more interesting than what I was going to create. So I'm going to get these layers of grasses, maybe some, some pieces come down and like these little areas of the hillside that those beautiful green hills are gonna kind of rolling, and it's already really fun. So we get some of the foliage in there. I could do like a little, I could, if I want to, put a little bush there, but we'll see how that goes. Add some more interest in the foreground. What I was really interested in was the patterns of the mustard against the green.
Hmm.
And so let me get some of this yellow back in. See, I can push that back up and get that yellowish color. But the cool thing is that this is also what is underneath all those yellow flowers. So that's okay. Right.
Right.
So there's a darker color underneath the dirt, the ground, the grass, underneath all of the yellow flowers. Okay, so there's my alcohol wash side. And I'm gonna put that aside. Just gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna get it out of there's a little bit dripping down, so I want it to dry. It dries really fast, so you can use 70 or 90% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. You can find it anywhere. And you can even use water. So let's say that you're not you don't have alcohol available, you can use water. It doesn't get it's just a different technique, and it actually is a little bit more granular, even though this is turning out to be quite granular. Look at how fun all of these drips are
Yeah.
in here. That is so cool. You could even have a little bit of that brush in the front. Like if I wanted to this is an example of how I can change and pivot and go in a different direction because of what happened with my alcohol wash. Like it might be kind of cool to have some of those shrubby kind of brushy plants in the foreground, but we'll see. That's because my original idea is how beautiful this was,
Right.
but don't be afraid to experiment. So the cool thing about both of these techniques, the alcohol wash and the dry blending, is that I have covered my surface. And so in a very quick and very intentional way. And so what that's going to help me with is not having these lighter colors of my board coming through. And so sometimes those little light spots coming through your board can be very distracting. And it's also a technique that some people use, and that's totally fine too. But I don't really want to see flashlights, coming
Hmm.
through, like fireflies coming through my background in most cases. So my blending tool, like I said, we can rip it into different shapes, and it even like You can even get sort of a brush shape on there, and it's got all these little cool fibers in there that allow it to be almost brush-like. So I'm gonna blend my sky first.
We have
Get
Carl saying that he uses the pipe insulation, but he dips the end into alcohol
Oh,
um,
that's cool.
to give it some kind of brush techniques.
See, look at how creative everybody is. See, he does it a different way, and I'm sure that they're beautiful. I'm sure that the like whatever he's doing is gonna be fun. Maybe Carl should put an example in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe this one off, but I'm starting from light to dark, and then I'm gonna do my hills here, which I accidentally got a little bit of that with the alcohol, which is totally fine. So this is a little bit more blending. It happens. So if I want to come back and reshape this hill back here and do something, I'm gonna reimagine this a little bit because I didn't like the shape of that ridge line. So I want this to be more exciting. I'll get that to go up there. So I love these squared off pastel, my pastels, because they give me a really beautiful edge. So the thing that I'm not as much of a fan is with the dry blending is how much those edges are blended, and I don't get a sharp line. But what I do later is when I develop the painting, then those will become, I'll get my lost and found edges more easily
Mhm.
with when I am developing it. And so now I'm going to get into the trees. What I just want to make sure that I'm doing is getting that surface underneath covered. And look how much falls off too. So, you've got a hazier kind of like uh, this could be a really good foggy day. This might be a better tool to use when we have those foggy, misty mornings. This could be really a good tool for that too. And so you can see the difference. I have much harder time getting I don't have an edge, which is fine.
Mhm.
So I'm going to get into my greener grasses here. I'm going to do some up and down and sideways. So I have distant, fields going across, but then I also have some grassy areas where I'm going to start with this kind of shape so that I can really give you a sense of the different textures in the fields. And this will be fun, this little pink area. See this, oh my gosh, they're so different, aren't they? Two different ways of starting your pastel painting.
We've got about 15 more minutes.
Oh, okay, we got a lot of time. We were doing 2 paintings. How long has it taken me to get this far? Easy. 'Cause that's another fun thing. That's one of the things I love about pastels is how quickly you can get this to this stage here. So look at that. So we've got the dry blending technique and our alcohol wash. This, I already see a tree trunk right here. I might as
Yeah.
well use some branches in here. And this, and now I can take time to develop, and then we can see, is it going to be the same when I get done with developing, the painting, or is my underpainting going to dictate that these are going to be very different, or are they going to be really similar? So I've never done it side by side like this in 2 similar scenes that so it's going to be really fun to see how this all shakes out. Let me get this. I'm gonna start on make sure this is dry. Yeah, look at that. So this really sets your pastels, the alcohol wash. And so it brings back some of the tooth in your support. So now you have almost all the tooth of your pastel support still all intact.
Mhm.
And you've got this beautiful underpainting. So what do you guys think of this underpainting? Let's,
I love it. It's definitely has a little bit more pop to it without being blended like the pipe insulation.
yeah, yep. This one has much more
Yeah, it's much softer.
softer. Yeah. So it's kind of a personal thing, like a personal preference, like which one do you prefer? I kind of like them both for different reasons, but I want to get my sky in there. Get a little bit of a dot there. I can cover that up very easily. And I'll bring a little bit more blue. So if my light is coming from the upper left, what I notice in the skies when I'm out on location, which can help me when I'm developing a painting in the studio, is that the sky will change from left to right. It's lighter to darker if my light source is over here.
Mhm.
And it also changes from the horizon up. It always gets bluer as you go up and more intense color because there's not as much atmosphere and in your in the way. And so, and then I'm just going to go back and forth and do a little bit of this and get the sky, but I'm not going to overdo it or overthink it. I just want to get this started for you guys so you can see the differences when you start to paint over your underpainting.
Are you gonna do skies at the same time, or are you just gonna work one painting and then the other?
Uh, you know what? What do you want? Do you guys want me to do both, like
I
one and
think,
then the
yeah,
other?
well, because we only have 15 minutes left, so I think if you kinda show work on both
Okay,
paintings at the same time, it'll show us kinda how they
let's do
develop.
that. Let's do that. And then some people say you go dark to light, and in general that is the case with how I paint. But with pastels, it is pretty easy to go over with a light pastel if you haven't filled up the tooth of your support. It's pretty easy to
Mhm.
get the light back in. That's kind of fun. We're going to go down into my hill a little bit here. Okay, then then I'll get back into my hill on this side and do a little bit of that. Get that. Let's see, do I want a little, there we go. And then if I was going to um, have light on those hills back there, what I would want to do is darken the other side. So the shadow side, again, I'm doing a little bit of dark over. So if there's a shadow side of these hills, because the light is coming from the upper left, and I can add a little shadow and get that variation. You know how fun that is, when you got
Mhm.
all those variations in the distance. And so I'm going to put a little bit of that in there, just so we have some variation back there. And then I'm going to start with the dark on this side. So we're going to, let's see, I'm going to get this side a little bit in shadow, although right now this looks like a really hazy day, which is very fun. And I'll get a bit of light on this side. Okay, now I'm going to get into my trees. All right. So we're going to do, again, I'm going to start with my darker color and get in and get these trees, the shadow side. I don't want to cover up all the drips, and just kind of shape this beautiful tree line. Let's see, I do want to get that dark in there, and then I'll go over it with the light, the highlight side. I could do some darker trees down in here or get some different colors in there. All right, I'm gonna do, okay, I'll do the dark on this side too. I'll get my shadow side of my trees first and start developing. Let's see, we get this. But what we started with is is so fun that this part is even more fun
Mhm.
because we got to go. I'm gonna do a little bit of get in there. I don't want that to be such a strong line right there. Am having so much more fun creating the patterns in these big shapes because of the way we started our painting. And let's see if I go up a little bit with this one, make this shape a little bit different. You can imagine these old 300-year-old oak trees back here, or some eucalyptus trees, which are not indigenous, but they're really beautiful and fun to paint. And so we've got a pretty decent amount of shadow on both sides. Now let's see, our highlight color on our trees, our sunlight color might not have as much in here because the way this is turning out is lending itself more to an atmospheric kind of a misty morning kind of feel. And this, I'm going to put some highlight, some sun here. And I can also accentuate, if I'm really have this being a sunnier day, I can put some bluer sky over here so it shows that it is actually a sunny day. And
Yeah.
sometimes I use the back of my or the side of my pinky finger to get some extra blending in there if I need it. So really fun. But I like all that texture in there with pastel. All right, so we're gonna have some highlight, over in certain parts. And then this side, because our light source is over there, and I want it to be random and pretty and not too, I don't want to repeat patterns. So I'm thinking about all these things while I'm painting. And then of course I'll reevaluate as the painting gets closer to being finished, and then decide, ooh, that looks good or that doesn't look good, and go from there. All right, so like if I do have, I'm going to use a different color for the highlight over here on this side because of the misty morning or the misty feel on this painting. I'm not going to use as warm of a color in the distance on the light side of these trees. It'd be fun to figure out what people are being more drawn to as I develop these two
Right.
paintings and
Well, I know
see.
for me, the alcohol wash, and I find it interesting because I was always told, like everything I learned was hard pastels for the underpainting so that you don't take up as much of the tooth. And I think that combined with the brush that I was using, it ended up taking
Mhm.
off a lot of the pigment. And so my underpaintings were just very kind of flat, I feel like. So I liked watching your technique with using a much softer pastel and putting more pigment down, because I do feel like it
Yeah,
covered the paper better. And I do love the vertical lines from the
the alcohol,
alcohol.
the drips.
Yeah,
You
so I'm
know,
definitely gonna have to try that.
and the way that we interpret what we're learning to fit what we want to create is also, everybody has their own personal little way of doing things or interpreting what they learn from their instructors or from their
Mhm.
whatever techniques they're learning from video
Yeah.
or whatever it may be, is like, oh, okay, I'm going to try that and see if that works for me. I'm putting a
And I
little bit
think
of dark
too,
back
yeah,
in here.
it depends on also how you apply the rest of your pastel. Because I know, so Karen uses a lot of texture in hers. Sometimes she'll use
Hmm.
gesso and make it really thick. So I think it works really well for hers. And Bethany Fields does the same thing with the pipe insulation. And she does some softer paintings, but her cloudscapes really bite. Like they're sharp. They jump out at you, even when
Uh-huh.
she's using that. So I think also I think it's learning how to use it, because I just started using the pipe insulation. So I think it takes time to practice it, and then playing with, the different techniques. Like Anne yesterday was using a razor and, the brayer and all kinds of things. So I think it definitely just takes some time to
Oh,
play.
yeah.
And uh,
What was Anne painting in oil?
okay, so hers was really cool. You should watch it. She does water mixable oil.
Mm-hmm.
So she did a pastel underpainting with alcohol, and then she used black, and it was periwinkle, to kind of put in her sketch. And then
Mm-hmm.
she went over it with pastel, and it was so cool.
Oh gosh.
It was really
Wow.
neat.
That sounds
So yeah,
awesome.
there's
I'm
so
gonna
many
go
different
watch that.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to apply all of this stuff. It's so cool.
Yeah. So this is more of a spring green, and there was a lot of that happening because of the springtime in Sonoma County. So I'm using few different colors, but I mean, trying a different palette on this side than this side. And then over here, I'm gonna go with more of a brighter, because in mistier days, you're gonna get more intense color, which isn't that weird? Like it's not as contrasty. You're gonna
Mhm.
have some real vibrancy in shadows and colors on gray days or more of a misty day. So I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna see, because the kind of the painting is telling me what it wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And that's
so,
something that I've kind of learned I need to be a little bit more flexible with is I go into it as, okay, this is what I wanna paint, and I try to
mhm.
make it do what I want, and I get mad when it doesn't do it, whereas I think listening to the painting and saying, "Okay, it's going in a different direction than I planned,"
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
better.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of that, like just saying, okay, this is I see some other things happening here that I want to try. And so if I was gonna, let's see if I was gonna kind of accentuate any kind of a tree in here or trunks maybe in the shadows. Let's see what might or might not happen with, let's see if I could, I'm just gonna do a little bit of let's see how that goes, or if it needs to be darker
We've got about
than
5
the
minutes.
foliage. 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing pretty good though.
Yeah.
Because I've got everything covered. I've got some things developed. I've got some techniques in here. We've got more of a misty day here and a little bit more of a sunny day over on this side. And I wonder if anybody has any questions about or any comments about what they see so far, and
They've
what do
they've
you
enjoyed
guys
it. They
think?
said this is really cool, and being able to watch you do 2 paintings at one time is really neat as well. I like doing
Yeah,
that with,
usually.
different surfaces, so I'll do a sanded surface, and then I'll do, like a gesso textured one, or I'll use, like, a 𝗣𝗶𝘀𝗁 with some gesso on it, and because 𝗣𝗶𝘀𝗁 is so brightly colored, that's what I pick as the underpainting is just that paper itself. So
Oh,
being able to
cool.
put these all side by side and kinda see how they differ because of the surfaces is
Mm-hmm.
really fun too.
Yeah. I have done this before out on location where I want to paint what's over there on the left and what's on the right, and I'll put them side by side. And it's not a diptych, it's not a
Yeah,
continuation. It's just that I'm attracted to both things at that certain time of day, and I want to try and capture as much
that's
as I can of,
interesting.
of both of them. Yeah, I did that when we were, Deborah and I taught a workshop in France last year, and we were at the coast, which was one of my favorite days of painting. And so I was demoing on both sides where I was looking at the water and the rocks. And then I was looking at the cliffs over on another side and more of the rocks and then more of the it was a really beautiful day and magical, really. And so I think that I've got a good start, on both
Yeah,
of these, and they're both fun, and I can put some. Let me get some of the darker. This is like a eggplant color, and use the edges just to create some branches, and then I'll have to tone them down. There's a little too much. And I may or may not like that, so I might put some. Let's see if I can get some, different things happening back here, that would be indicative of branches and trees, and then I may or may not like them and I'll go over, but I just want to indicate just a few of those over there. And then let's see if we can get a few in here. And I'm going to tone it down because you wouldn't see something so like here, that one's sticking out, but in general. And I'm just going to play and develop these, and then you'll see. I can also send Carrie the finished paintings. I can develop one of these paintings to its full potential, and then really give you guys an idea of how I take it from this point. But the to more finished painting. But
yeah,
this was more about how to start and how each of those techniques and each of those ways of starting give you different results, but they're both really fun, and they're both very just a bunch of fun. So
No,
I
it was
think that
great being able to see those come together at the same time and kind of see how you can, and it's also good to like, so you tested some different colors on different ones, so you can
yeah.
definitely try some different things at the same time. It's nice.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
and
everyone watching,
I wasn't following my reference photo as much as I was letting the painting speak to me, and using what my previous knowledge of being out on location
mhm,
and also painting in the studio to inform me and let me get more creative instead of saying, I have to copy this
right.
exactly. So that's not as much fun, and it's more stressful. We
Yeah,
want to
I agree.
remove the stress. We want it to be more just fluid and joyful.
Yes.
So,
Um,
does
so
anyone have questions?
well, I was answering them as you were painting.
There you go.
Lisa is going to be on faculty at the Planner Convention. She's going to be a field painter. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
have not signed up, make sure you come to Tahoe so you can come paint with Lisa and come chat with us. We're going to be there doing some videos for the podcast. And then
Mhm.
be sure to check out Pastel Today, the newsletter. It comes out every Friday. We've always got fun things in there, articles from Kelly. Sometimes I'll throw in some stuff about sales that are going on. Comes out every Friday. And then Pastel Podcast as well. Be sure to check that out. It's thepastelpodcast.com. Our first one will be coming up in May, and I am super excited about it. So
Me
thank you so
too.
much, Lisa, for coming today and thank you guys all for letting us chat about the podcast. I hope you're as excited as we are, and
Yeah.
hope you guys all have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Are they going to be able to share like things that they want us to talk about too? Like, is there a place to do that?
They will eventually, yeah. Once the site
Yeah.
is fully up, they'll be able to, it'll be more interactive, and especially with social as well. But right
Oh,
now, we're
good,
just
good.
trying to get people to be aware of it so that
Yeah.
we have a good audience when we go live.
I know it's going to be so exciting. Thank
And
you all for joining me today. I hope you learned something a little bit new that you can take away and put in your toolbox, and get out when you get out there painting from real life or in your studio, that you can experiment and put more joy back into your painting process.
awesome. Thank you guys all so much. And I will see you guys tomorrow. We've got another great guest, and I'll be back on Friday as well. I hope you guys all have a good day.